So I just want to follow up, Dr. Chris. And did you get a chance to talk to those attorneys after that presentation last week?
Yes, I did. I did get a chance to talk with both of them.
Okay. Tell me what was their response after our personal injury attorney presentation?
Uh, their response was they were definitely blown away. It was definitely something they never heard before, other than what I shared with them. But it had been a while since I've kind of since they seen the last presentation, so it was like a refresher. Obviously, they forget that stuff, so they were blown away. They really liked it. One attorney told me, well, I want to get ahead of myself. But yeah, they really enjoyed it a lot.
No, no, go ahead and say what you were going to say.
I was gonna say that one attorney told me uh shortly after, I want to say it was later that day or the next day, he had settled on a case where this was due to the last sales presentation that he participated in. He told me that he had a patient or a client rather that was in a car accident, and he wanted me to see her first before he would even decide to take her on. So I brought her in. I did the test, all the tests that the doctors didn't do. He sent me all the paperwork, did all the tests that the other providers did not do. And I told him that she had a strong case. He took on the case and he settled on it. Like I think it was the day after the sales presentation that we did last week, the lunch and learn. And he said, Doc, it works. Your system works. I was able to get 3 times the medical bill.
Okay, let's break down what you just said because what you just said was very important. Number one, how did you get to that attorney? How did that relationship start?
Well, we started a relationship, but we knew each other before. Just a attorney chiropractic relationship. We had a relationship prior to. We've been to lunches, and they said he said I'll refer you
Okay,
somebody.
so before you joined me, you didn't know what to say, and you went out to lunch with him.
We went out to lunch. That was it,
Okay, so that was the extent of the relationship. And
pretty much.
did he treat you with authority and credibility and ask you to be the expert witness then?
No, not
Okay.
at all.
All right. So you joined the program, you learned personal injury documentation, presentation. You did the first presentation with him. How did that first presentation go over? Do you remember how he responded to the very first time you explained all this?
Yeah, he's responded really well, and that kind of led me into it led him into asking me, can you see this client before I even decide to take her on? So that's how great that sales presentation went
Okay,
last.
so let's be clear because the sound's a little muffled. So I'm restating it because I'm hearing a little muffled sound on my end. So what Dr. Chris just said is after he did the presentation, he had a client, personal injury client, call him, and the attorney did not even want to waste his time taking the case until he sent it to Dr. Chris to see if there was actually any type of value to the case. Is that not what you just said, Chris?
That's exactly what I said. I took my earpiece off, so you might be able to hear me better. That's
Okay,
exactly what.
now I can hear you better. Okay. Now, what does that say about the credibility and authority that that attorney has in Dr. Chris? It's off the chart, is what it says. He's not even going to take the client unless Dr. Chris gives him the okay and says, yeah, we definitely have a case here. Now, how did that happen? It happened because Dr. Chris gave our personal injury attorney presentation to create authority and credibility. That's how and why it happened. Now, you took the case. So I take it you found some potential that there was enough going on with this patient to be a potential good case, right?
Right.
And then did you review with him the 7 minimum categories that determine the strength of the case and how it applies to that patient?
Yes, I did. I set up an appointment and reviewed it with him. He had his paralegal in there. He had an associate attorney in there, and I went over the 7 minimum categories after I went over the narrative report with him.
And how did they respond? And by the way, where did you learn how to determine the 7 minimum carries to determine the strength of a case?
I learned that underneath you, underneath your
Right.
leadership.
That's right. So you got the presentation, you've got the 7K. Okay, so you do the 7 categories. How did they respond when you told them, hey, here's the 7 minimum categories, and this is what the patient does and does not have? How did they respond to that?
They were taken back. They were really quiet. They were kind of taken back. And they started kind of deliberating amongst themselves. But it was, it was great. It was great for me. But
And
they
they,
could have
oh
been
yeah, because you were obviously you're sitting in the room, the king, right?
pretty much,
Pretty much, yeah. I
pretty
mean,
much.
you're the authority figure in that room.
Yeah, and it's totally different than it was in the past. Totally different position.
So they take the case because of the documentation you showed them you had and the strength of the case. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And then you just told me they just settled the case. And what did the attorney say?
He said, Doc, your system works. He said, I was able to get, he said the bills were only 6,800. I was able to get 21,000. He said, your system works. Now I want to try with another insurance company. So he was excited.
In other words, he got at least a 3-to-1 of medicals.
Correct.
And how excited was he, by the way?
He was very excited. So
Yeah.
excited that he was ready to get another client to me that was with a particular insurance company that he thought that was the toughest to get those type of cases through with.
And that was without even you asking. That was him just volunteered. I want to send another person your way.
Yep. Yep.
Is this fantastic or what?
It is fantastic. It's definitely fantastic.
And then of course we do the follow-up presentation last week. And I said, you cannot give that enough. Why? It's too much information for the attorney to get in one setting. I mean, how much information did we give?
It was a lot.
It's a lot. It has to constantly be reinforced. So, and then how did they respond after they heard it from me? And I'm sure I probably did a little better job than you, but how did they respond? What was their reactions after they went through the second time of me giving the presentation?
Yeah, you did. Of course, you did way better than I could I could even ever imagine doing. But yeah, they one of the attorneys, he said, it was so much information, Doc. He was like, I took a lot of notes and I just gotta sit and process this information. That was one attorney. The other attorney, which I already alluded to, was the one that said, hey, this was great. And the next day, oh, we got a case. It just settled. And this is the result. Your system works. And I was like, wow, right, talk about perfect timing.
Very different story, you being the authority and credibility versus you not knowing what you're doing, not knowing what you're saying, not knowing how to determine the strength of the case, not knowing how to fully document the case. Very different story, isn't it? And how they're treating you.
It's totally different. You told me, Doc, you said, we're on the top of the hill and we don't even know it. We're on the top of the mountain. We don't even realize it. And at that moment, I realized it. I realized how important we are. And it's such a great feeling because I used to think the opposite. I used to be at the bottom. I'm the guy that delivering donuts and candy, you
Yeah,
know.
you're always there with your hand out, hoping and pleading.
That's right.
And that's not the way it goes now. That
Not anymore.
you come in with authority, you come in with credibility, you lay out exactly how these cases lay out relative to the injury award. You tell him the strengths and weaknesses, what they do or don't have. And now he has so much credibility in you. He's sending the cases to you first before he decides to take them.
Exactly. And I like what you said during the presentation. You asked them how long they've been practicing when they said over 20 years. Now I can use that. Now I can use that. It just confirmed everything you said. Some of these attorneys been practicing so long and they haven't heard any of this stuff.
Right. I say it all the time. Chiropractors, they always think the attorney knows way more than what they do. And they approach the relationship from an inferior weakness standpoint. not from authoritative credibility standpoint. And by the way, Chris, who would you rather do business with in your life, in any category of your life? Somebody that works on your car, that would you rather have somebody that is authoritative and credible in their category, or somebody who's weak and is a suck up?
Definitely the former. That's a no-brainer.
That's what I try to get across to the chiropractors all the time. You can't be a suck up. You're going to get the referrals from knowing what you're doing and being authoritative and having credibility. That's how you get the referrals, not showing up with your hand out and then just doing whatever the attorney asks you to do. That's exactly how it's done. Okay, so in addition to that, let me just make a couple comments. I wanted to just do a little follow-up on that because I thought it went pretty well, to be honest with you. We covered, actually, I thought that was probably the best presentation I'd ever given, to be honest with you. With the content, we had really good content. We delivered it well. But one of the main reasons is it was interactive. Did you notice that after every major topic, I stopped and interacted and engaged them? Did you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that. And I thought that was very important, to have that feedback and interaction for them to really get it. Yeah.
And what was I really trying to do? That's the sales part. That's not the content part. That's the sales part. That's where I was trying to establish need. That's where I was taking them through the admit phase, consequences, and personalization. So when we finished, we got them to admit how much money they're losing. They were seeing on average 5 cases a month, but only 2 soft tissue injury cases a month. About both of them were about. But when we finished, how much money did we get both of them to admit they were losing? $240,000 a year. We got them both to admit how much money they're losing. They didn't know how to put, and by the way, what did I tell you? One of the questions when you go through the presentation, they'll ask you is, well, do you have a narrative report or something? Remember, I said one of the questions they'll ask you after you deliver it, they're going to go, well, how's this delivered? Well, what was one of the very first questions your attorneys asked me? Well, that's all fine and dandy, but if, how do you put all this together to give it to the insurance company? Do you remember him saying that was right up front? And I said, what? We're going to cover that.
Yep.
Because that was step number 10. That was the 12 steps to tell the story, to support. In other words, that was the core, those 12 categories. That's the core of the narrative, report, deposition, or trial testimony. How many times did I tell you? That's what they'll commonly ask about a narrative report. I go, yeah, we'll cover the basics of of how to put it together. Well, that was the 12 steps. So when we get all this information, we put it in the narrative report in these 12 categories. That's how we build and support the case. Say exactly where we already knew what the questions they were going to ask before they even asked them. That's why that presentation is designed the way it is. It's all from reverse engineering. So we finished the presentation. If you remember, there was a couple other things we got them to admit to. They've been in practice 20 years. Had they ever seen any doctor put together a case or give this information like we just presented it tonight? And what did they say, Chris?
They said, nope, they have not.
Never in 20 years. Not maybe, not kind of, sort of, never in 20 years. This is the reality of what's going on out there. Now, would you have ever known that, Chris, without taking my course and seeing how much information you didn't know?
Never. I would never have known that.
You would have not even known what you didn't know, and you would have never been able to change their mind, would you?
Nope.
Because you didn't even know what to change. And so you'd be stuck on that little rat wheel with your hands out instead of the position of authority and credibility. Now, I got to tell you, that's got to feel pretty good for the attorneys now to sending over the case to you before they decide to take them.
Yeah. It does it feels great.
That's the ultimate compliment of personal injury, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
That's the ultimate right there.
When I heard that particular attorney say what he said, about the system working, just reaffirming everything that you said. Because again, it's a leap of faith. We don't really know until we do it. You know, you have to take that leap of faith. But now that I've done it, it's all confirmed, and everything you said is just happening. It's just it just feels great to be on this end. Feels wonderful.
And then again, you can't give it enough. It's so much information that you just got to constantly reinforce it, whether it's in another presentation, whether it's chopped up, whether it's an individual subject. It is constant reinforcement because it's so much information. You can't just think you can just say it one time. Now you'll get referrals like you did it one time and you got referrals. But look how much more authority and credibility they have in you now with it being delivered the second time versus the first time.
Yeah, Doc, because for that particular attorney, that was like the third time they heard it. It
Yeah.
wasn't the first. It was the first time was when he heard your sales presentation. I think it was like almost 2 years ago. And then I did the narrative report. That was what was that, 2024-ish? And then now. So it takes, like you said, it takes the follow-up, the follow-up, the follow-up from them to
Yeah.
really
No, it didn't take that for you to get the business. You started getting the business on the first presentation,
yeah,
but talking about driving the depth of the relationship.
right.
I mean, that says a lot for him to say he wants to refer him to you before he takes them on. In other words, he doesn't want to waste his time or money until you said it's okay. That's what he just said. That's what he's doing by saying, hey, I want you to check the patient first to see if we actually have a case here before I waste my time or money.
Right. It's something I've never heard before, ever.
That's the way it is. And it's the reinforcement that keeps driving that relationship deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I told you what's going to happen. He said he only has 2 soft tissue injury cases. I said, as soon as you develop the credibility authority, said, what's going to happen? He's now going to start involving you in the other cases that he didn't think you had any value to. Remember, a lot of these attorneys, when they have a disc injury or a fracture or whatever, they don't think they need a chiropractor because they got the MRI. But soon as you do what you did, they start using you for everything because look how much you could add on now to a disc case or a fracture case or a dislocation case. So, all right, let's go into. I just wanted to point out that, and then the categories of the case. I just wanted to point that out again real quick. If you remember, if you haven't had a chance to watch that, I'd watch it. I'd watch it once or twice because I paid a lot of attention after I covered topics to engaging them. Why was I engaging them? I was engaging them to see what they did or didn't know, but I wanted them to go through the admit phase, consequences phase, and the personalization phase. And you have to do that to establish need. We went right through every time we covered a topic, and I'd say stuff. Have you ever heard that before? Have you ever had that documented before? Are you familiar with that? See, I engaged them every time to remind them they're not getting it. They're not getting it. They're not getting it. They're not getting it. And so at the end, it was very easy. And then you heard them at the end saying, "Yeah, we don't get any personal injury education in school." I go, "Well, that's what the doctors that you're dealing with have got nothing, but you're not even aware of it." So gives it all up. That's how it works. That's exactly how it works. This is how you just build, your personal injury cases, your personal injury attorneys. You go to 1, you go to 2, then you go to 3, then you go to 4. And then after you get 2, 3, or 4 attorney referring, then you ask them, what other parts of the city do you have clients that are too far to come to me? As a matter of fact, Chris, and Chris even told me this, I said, they'll even ask you before you get 2 or 3, they'll ask you, do you have an office over here? And Chris, what did he ask you, Chris?
He asked me, did I have, he mentioned, am I going to get an office in another location? He just threw it out there like, you should get an office in this city, this town. It's like, wow.
Not even Chris asking. Because why? Because he wants Chris's documentation. That's why he asked Chris, hey, are you going to put another office in this city? And he said this city because that's where he had more clients, right?
Yeah, right.
What did I tell you was going to happen, Chris?
You told me, you told me it was gonna happen. Yeah, you
Exactly.
did.
And I said, and what's the worst thing you could do now? Open a second office over there, and then you work part-time in your office and part-time in that office. That's the worst thing
Right.
you could do right now. No, you stay where you're at, you build it, you get like at least 2 attorneys or 3, and then you train somebody, and then you open an office over there. You can't build an office working part-time. And then you open that satellite office over there with somebody else running it full-time, and you already know you're going to get X amount of business coming through there before you do that. You quantify it. Do I have 1 attorney? How many cases he's going to send? Do I have 2? And it's always better to have, if you got 3 attorneys, because you don't want 1 attorney to say it, and then it turns out he doesn't have as many cases as, what he really said, or the relationship turns sour, or he dies, or loses his license, or whatever. So you get 2 or 3 attorneys that point in the same direction. You open an office, train somebody, the documentation, put them in there, and then you keep that office. You don't have to sell it. And you'll make $250,000 to $500,000 off the satellite office. And then you do it again. Then you get 4 attorneys together, and then 5. You just keep doing it. You just keep winning over the attorneys, being the credibility authority. And as you get a few, you ask them, where else do you have clients that are too far? Because you've already sold the business. They're just too far to come to you. But that's what happens. They ask you to go somewhere else. And the biggest mistake chiropractors do is they'll open another office over there. They'll chase 1 attorney, and then they won't even build their practice. Now their work doubles, their overhead doubles. Now they're working 6 days a week instead of 4.5. So you got to do it. You do it smart. Okay. So anyway, everything's happening exactly like we said it was going to lay out. Once you had the knowledge of the documentation and you knew how to give the presentation, boom, there you go.